So it's showing 1:30, and we have a budget hearing with the fire department. We have Counselor Allen, Counselor Bay, Counselor Carney, and President Helen Hudson, and I'm Steve Thompson, the chairman of the Public Safety Committee. We have Chief Mons with us. Chief, I would like you to introduce your staff, and to begin with, give us an overview, and Counselor Rudge is here also.
Okay.
Give us an overview of what's going on today and what you're proposing for next year.
Okay. To my right is First Deputy Chief Steve Evans. To my left is our Fiscal Officer Diane Nastry. I have our command staff here, Deputy Chief Bob Cussant, Deputy Chief Elton Davis, Deputy Chief John Kane, Deputy Chief Barry Lasky, and Deputy Chief Jeff Kite. And I have our EMS Director, Brian Felice, Lieutenant Brian Felice, is with us representing our staff.
Thank you. So if you would give us, to begin with, just an overview,
Okay.
and maybe if you have the, after you go over the overview, we'll get to the book and look at the numbers and.
Okay. Well, our main priority is to save lives, save property, and stabilize any hazardous incidents in the city of Syracuse. We have 11 strategically located fire stations throughout the city. We have 69 members on duty at all times, 73 including the airport. We're on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year. We have a very highly trained hazmat company that also serves as one of our engine companies and truck companies. And what they do, they respond throughout the city and airport on all chemical, biological, radiological, and potentially explosive spills, sort of like what happened at the jail the other day when there was a white substance. Our firefighters are the first ones there to assess what's going on. At every fire, we go to every structure fire, all motor vehicle accidents, any emergency medical alarm that happens in the city. We're one of the first responders on scene. We go to the fires, we make sure we search the buildings, extinguish the fire, make sure there's no victims inside. At all fires, we initiate medical care. All the vehicle accidents, we initiate medical care and stabilize the incident. And we also do a lot of technical rescue services for the citizens as far as elevator entrapments, swift water rescues, ice rescues, trench and confined space, high and low angle rescues, any kind of building collapse. We're trained to do that type of work also. So pretty much any fire or emergency related service we provide. So do you guys want to answer me any questions now, or?
Can you describe any achievements from last year?
Sure.
And changes you may be headed toward this year?
Okay. I think some of our best accomplishments are life-saving actions that our firefighters achieved this past year. We got in the middle of tragedy of many of our citizens. We saved a lot of lives of the work we do and with our highly trained staff. Our response times play a key role in getting on scene and actually providing care at an early stage in an incident, and it actually has a lot to do with saving somebody's life and providing care at an early stage. I think one of the other key accomplishments is how efficiently we run. With the reduced resources that we have given to our department, we still find ways to manage ways to save taxpayers money and still provide our critical services that we do provide. Every year there's inflation of fire service equipment. It inflates between 3% and 8% every year, and I think it's a real accomplishment to be able to continue to provide the services we do and keeping our budget remaining flat from the year to year. Our Fire Prevention Bureau, they had a stellar year. Anybody that requested us to come interact with their community or their school or their community group, we engage with over 200 different groups, every public school in the city, every parochial and private school in the city. We provided fire education and prevention and public safety education. I think another key, I have a lot of different things that we did that I thought were really great. Our fire safety smoke trailer, we went to a lot of events. I think it was the busiest year. We were deployed to many community functions, and we taught a lot of people about fire safety. Last year, we worked with our innovation team, and we came up with some addresses in the city where we thought that there were houses that didn't have smoke detectors, so we got that data. Our companies went out and we installed smoke detectors into these homes where we got from collecting the data. There was a fire on Kennedy Street earlier this year where it was, when our company showed up, it was a pretty severe fire, and the occupant of that house was alerted by one of the smoke detectors that we actually installed, and it saved his life. There's no doubt about it that his life was saved. So I think our smoke detector program, it's been a highlight for years in the past, and it's going to continue to be a highlight of one of the best things that we do to save lives. We had an open house where we had 300 citizens, and they got to see the fire trucks and learn about how to deal with emergencies, how to get out of their house in case of a fire. I think those are the main highlights of what we did last year. But I think being able to just continuously operate efficiently, saving money, and still provide the critical services is definitely something that I'm proud of, and our team working hard to make sure that we spend every dollar accountably.
I'd like just to ask on staffing. Can you discuss staffing a little, and then we'll open it up for...
Sure. Like I said, our on-duty staff in the city is 69, with 73 at the airport. Our current staff, this for budget year 2020, we were budgeted for 363 positions. 12 of those positions were unfunded. So we are proposing to actually have 351 positions. When retirements are going to be concluded at the end of this fiscal year, we'll actually have 331 firefighters on our staff, and we're hoping to get restaff when we hire a class at the end of this current fiscal year in 2020, and we're anticipating 20 vacancies.
So can you go through that for me once again? It says 363 here.
Yes, so that's what's authorized by the council. So 12 of those positions were unfunded, and that leaves us with 351 positions currently that we're hoping to get proposed for 2020. Is that correct?
Yep. And then,
And while we're on that one, I'm gonna stay on the same vein as Counselor Thompson. So we have, I'm looking at the heavy equipment that's zeroed out. We don't have any heavy equipment mechanics.
What page are you looking at?
188.
Okay.
Because it's zeroed out, there's nothing there.
can't work on diesel.
Okay, so there's two levels of heavy mechanic, and so they can't work on diesel motors. So what we've proposed is to actually have heavy mechanic tools, which they can work on regular vehicles and with diesel motors. So we're trying to be more efficient with the manpower that we have. And the only other change from last fiscal year to the proposed fiscal year is we're looking to include another fire protection engineer to help with our plan review.
I just have a question about the inspections.
Yes.
So, I'm seeing a big decrease in both vacant building inspections and in public assembly inspections. It's the very first page for the main fire sworn. It's, estimated for 18-19 was 7,500, and this 19-20 proposed is cut by like 2,500. It just says 5,000 vacant building inspections. Is that because we're pushing that off on somebody else, or we don't believe that we're going to need to do as many, or it's just a cut to try and,
I believe that's a typing error.
Okay.
I believe they're going to be the same as last year
Okay,
for
and
the-
the same
for the-
with the
for-
public assembly
for
inspection?
the vacant inspections. I'm not sure. Is there any change in the public assembly? Can you hold on for 1 second?
Yeah, no problem.
If I can make a correction to,
You can go up on the microphone. This is Deputy Chief Elton Davis. He's in charge of our fire prevention bureau.
Good morning, good afternoon. For the vacant building inspections, Chief, for the change from 7,500 to 5,000, what we actually did, we perform our vacant building inspections every Saturday. So we send our companies around every Saturday. What we tried to do to conserve a little bit of the fuel and things of the like, we staggered our vacant building inspections such that we weren't going to every vacant every week.
Okay.
We have some larger districts like up on our Station 2, Truck 2 on the north side. We have quite a lot of vacants up there. So instead of sending companies out to see the same vacants every week, we staggered them such that we would go
Like every other week?
every other week. So that cut down on the number of actual inspections that we did for that.
Okay. And how about, and I don't know if you can answer this, the public assembly inspections? Looks like it's like 770, it's a reduction again in the amount of it, just on the back side of that page. I don't know if you had it, Andy.
Public same.
That's
Sorry,
184.
We're going, it's under code
Down from
enforcement.
from the 2,000 to the 1230.
Yeah.
Again, for our public assembly inspections, we're responsible to go in all our public assemblies once a year, and basically prior to a lot of events that we go through and do those inspections. One of the reasons that we cut those back, we reduced that number was because if we had a festival, or say at the Landmark that they had an event that lasted 3 days, we would do that initial inspection that first day that would cover a lot of the going back, repetitive, coming back. If it was on a Tuesday through a Saturday, we would go do a thorough inspection on that Tuesday, make sure that it was straight for the whole event, so we didn't have to go back each day to do a redundant inspection.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't have all my questions, but I'm gonna stay on your thing. Opticom control inspections, it was 13,000, it's down to 3,800.
Okay, so just to piggyback off what Chief Davis was saying, and I kind of got into it for our overtime budget. So a lot of these inspections, we're trying to reduce our costs with overtime and making sure we're being more efficient, like Chief Davis was saying. Also, I've come to the council many times about our condition of our apparatus, and we're trying to save on the wear and tear and still do the same amount of inspections, but just doing it in a different way. The Opticon inspections are, we have lights that turn green when we're coming down the street on the way to an emergency, and we were checking those every Sunday. So we just did some adjustments. So they're still getting checked, but we're not driving our apparatus out every week to do the same checks over and over. And it's more efficient because the people that actually, our workers that actually fix the ones that are broken, they fix them at a certain point, so we kind of put our schedule around that time. So as soon as we figure out that they're not working, we can have somebody fix them. So a lot of times we were going out, checking these Opticoms, and they weren't getting fixed for a while. So we're just trying to do things more efficiently and save fuel, wear and tear on the apparatus, and cut back on some of the man hours that we're using.
So basically, instead of, you were sort of, I'll say it as nicely as I can, we're trying to cut down OT rather than having guys going out saying, okay, I can go out and pack on some OT.
That's a small portion of it, but
You don't have to say yes.
oh no, but no, I'm going to be honest
I
with
don't
you.
wanna get you in trouble.
No, these on-duty firefighters, we're on duty doing these inspections. So if there's somebody off, they're on overtime. But these details aren't particularly just overtime details. These are our firefighters that are out responding to alarms. They're doing training. They're installing smoke detectors when we get requests. So they're doing all this in the course of a normal day. This isn't, these aren't like overtime details that they're getting just to get these inspections. These are just something we do them on a daily basis with our 69 on-duty firefighters. Okay. So, but some of the costs that, like I was saying, that goes into it.
Wear and tear on the vehicle.
It does.
Taking a guy out of the station to go
Yes.
actually check it.
Sorry, can I just so can you clarify, so you don't do the Opticon checks as often
We do
anymore?
them the first Sunday of the month now. We were doing them every Sunday.
Okay. And do you feel you've lost any, quality control by doing it 1/4 as often?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Yep.
We were checking the Opticoms every week, but they were only being repaired less than once a month. So we would check the same Opticom knowing that it was broken on a
Right.
weekly basis, and it wasn't
Still
getting
can't do
fixed. And
anything
we were,
until-
and we've done it that way for so long, and we decided that how can we become a little more efficient? And let's check them once a month and have them repaired once a month, and that way, every time we check them, the ones that are broken will be repaired, and just to save.
Hopefully you do it the week before, not the week after.
Yeah.
Hey, Chief, question relative to overtime.
Okay.
Can anybody, since the last year of former Chief Lenertz, how many classes did we bring in? I don't.
We've only brought in one class so far. Since,
was the one.
Yep, since
Sure.
last January. We hired 26 firefighters at that time.
And we're projected to do another one before.
Yes. And we're looking at around the same time to possibly hire 28 firefighters and hopefully get them all through the academy.
All right, well, that made it easy, so I'll save my question for next budget.
Okay.
So then I want to talk about staffing. You said that you're really, that there were 12 unfunded positions.
Yes.
Where were they unfunded? Were they all firefighters or lieutenant captain? What were they?
They end up trickling down to be firefighter spots, but as the
So we
diff-
start at what number? How many firefighters, how many captains, how many?
do we have that number?
Now we can get it.
I believe it was 246.
I feel like that.
Yeah, I believe it's 246 firefighters that we budgeted for, 72 lieutenants, 24 captains, 14 district chiefs, 5 deputy chiefs, first deputy chief, and myself. I believe those are the numbers, right?
We'll come.
But we can confirm that.
So you said 24, what was the 24 number?
Can you say that again?
What was the number that you said you budgeted 24 for?
Well, no,
20.
it doesn't.
That number is 23. Let me look on the sheet.
What I'm trying to figure out is when we put a class on, will that take us up to this number, or we still have unfunded positions?
If we hire exactly the 28, we're going to be fully staffed, minus those 12 unfunded positions. So it'll be the budgeted positions that I have, which was 363 minus the 12. We should be at 359. Because we have other retirements that are pending through the end of the year that are in.
And how is this impacting your overtime?
Well, manpower, when we hire a class, it dramatically reduces overtime. The last time we hired a class, at some points we reduced overtime by 94%. So the numbers that I showed you in March, they were dramatically lower. Last fiscal year 18, at that point was the lowest overtime has been in a few years, and this year we're looking at the numbers are going to be pretty close. I think fiscal year 18 we closed at 3.9 million. This year we're looking at 4.1 million once we take away some of the reimbursable overtime. So it's been the lowest that the overtime has been in quite a few years.
I'm just gonna commend you because that's the question I was gonna ask, but I'm be honest and say I wasn't sure if y'all were prepared.
Okay.
So I was gonna put
Yes.
you off, but I mean,
Yes, and with the we've gotten raises, and the extra cost of the raises, the overtime still is low, and the answer to all the overtime questions is hiring firefighters to reduce that.
So when was
if
the
the
last
overtime
time
is
you were at
concerned.
363?
I believe when we hired the last class, I believe we were pretty much staffed to our proposed positions, and then we lost 2, and then we've never been that high. I think we were at 361, were the highest we have been in the last few years.
So after the class was on, you were at, so these are unfunded in this year's budget. Is that right, Mary? Or- That's what I'm,
Yes, there was 12 unfunded positions last year also.
okay. Okay.
Chief,
Yes.
what is the cost, so when we do a class and we hire the new firefighters, what's the cost per firefighter when you count fringe benefits and everything.
Okay, I know the interest level pay is 46,000.
I wish I had that on me. You did that analysis, Mary, right?
Okay.
So the pay is at 46, and then whatever the benefits are.
Okay, I'm just gonna run through mine really quickly.
Okay,
I'm gonna need you to go to page 186.
186.
And just a couple quick questions on, what is that, the vaulted pay? Nope,
Okay.
that's out of title pay.
Okay,
And why is that so high?
the vaulted pay.
No, the out of title.
The out of title pay is $3,500. Is that what you're speaking of?
Yeah, but it was actually 181.
Last year it was projected at being $1,800, and next year's we're proposing $3,500, and that's just in anticipation of retirements. So if there's a captain that retires, by the time we're actually able to fill that captain spot, whoever the senior lieutenant, they get the captain's pay according to our contract. So it's in anticipation of promotions and things like that, and we promote based on when we hire and as people retire.
Okay, and then I'm gonna applaud you if this is the case. On the 500 line, there's 0 for injuries adopted. So we're not gonna have any injuries, huh?
What is your specific question?
It says 0 for police, fire, injured on duty.
Okay, so that's money that it's in a different position. Where is that?
I mean, if we're not having any injuries, yay.
No, but we do have our injuries. I mean, it's a dangerous job. I can guarantee you we're gonna have injuries this year in some
Probably
form.
have to do a budget transfer.
But yeah, we had the money allocated, but I believe it's in another line, and if not, we're gonna have to do a budget transfer. But I think wherever that $100,000.
Oh, for physician?
Yep.
That's, and the 415 professional services.
Okay.
So we have the money. It might not be particularly accounted for in the right line of the budget, but we do have the money
And the
for that. Yes.
415 line. Okay. My next one, because I'm just gonna get them all out the way.
Okay.
Office equipment, why is that so high on the 200 line?
So our office equipment, I believe I spoke to the council about our records management system, that the only reason it's not obsolete is because we're still using it, and it's been draining our manpower, keeping it running. This system is where we generate our mandated reports to the state. So we've been working with our IT team, and Deputy Chief Kite have been working really hard. We're actually purchasing a new RMS system because right now it's ran by the county and there's no tech support. So our firefighters and our land techs are actually providing the support. So this new software that we're purchasing, we're gonna have to incur this cost every year, but it's a necessity. It's gonna go away from the way things have been, but the way the system has worked in the past, it's not
What
been working
system
good.
do you have, Chief?
It's a record management system. We're gonna go to a new system. It's an RMS system, but it's like an off the shelf program that we're using that other fire departments, the major fire departments in the country use, and we got some very capable people of putting together this software, and it's going to be able to help us with our scheduling, tracking our alarms, tracking our manpower. We're gonna be able to be way more efficient using this system than what we got now. The system we got now, we spend a lot of time patching it, making it work, and it's not effective. I have Chief Kite here. He can answer specific questions about the particular product and all the work they've been doing. They've been doing a ton of work trying to move away from the old system that works very poorly to having an efficient system that is very easy to use, and it's gonna help with us being more efficient.
Okay. And the 100 line, so we're not doing any more EMS training? Or you move that too?
That we decided with budget not to budget for it because it's restricted funds. Does that sound familiar to you? So we do still anticipate receiving the money as we do EMS training. However, because of the nature of the funds, we don't budget for it.
Is that the same as well for the special grant sources? You don't wanna budget, just higher up on the same page. Like the offset from special grant sources, you don't wanna budget for what you don't know you're going to get.
So we had a safer grant that
Oh,
paid
that-
for a bunch of firefighter spots, 12 positions for firefighters, and that grant ran out earlier this year. So that was worth $1.9 million, and that grant has expired. Yes, we're gonna try to do that the next time it becomes available. But we need to do it in conjunction with hiring, so the numbers are feasible for us to apply for the grant and still once you get this grant, you have to maintain a certain staff level. So we have to make sure that we're hiring right around the same time the grant's available.
How many years is the grant for?
This past one was for 3 years. Jeff, how long is the new one for? What was the one for this year? Was it 2 years?
The original safer grant that we had was 2 years. Any ones after that are 3 years, but they're much lower percentage than we do.
Okay, so the ones in the future will be 3 years. This grant was for 2 years for $1.9 million, so. But, that was total, but we don't have that, going forward for this fiscal year because it expired.
And then on page 189, I have 2 questions. 300 line, there's nothing adopted for temporary services. So there's,
Say that again.
Those are the new positions, right?
No, the temporary thing, those are
Oh.
the electricians. So because of some of the work that we have done, sometimes we hire electricians over from the DPW just to be able to do work that we need to have done at our fire stations.
okay, so, and then
That's a
on,
temporary services, right?
right, but
yes.
there's nothing there adopted, so I was just curious.
So last year we didn't project for it, and this year we did a budget transfer because we did have some electricians come over and work for us to get some work done.
So you had quite a few budget transfers as well. Okay.
Yep,
Yeah,
there
we
was-
did a budget transfer.
Okay, and professional services went up $30,000. Why?
That covers the fiscal officer's salary, and when I was originally hired, I was split between 2 departments, and now I'm fully in fire. So it's benefits and everything, 'cause I'm Sura.
Okay, so that's Sir, okay. And then I'm gonna be done in a few minutes. Page 190, what is miscellaneous?
190.
And your indicators.
Okay, can you hold on for 1 second? That miscellaneous at the airport, what kind of alarm would that be?
Airport processor wants to.
Yes. So sometimes with that records management system, I'm not particularly sure. I might have to get back to you on this particular question, but sometimes what the alarm that we actually respond to in our RMS that I was saying doesn't work as efficient. There isn't anything that's straightforward to match up to the call that we went on. So sometimes they're mislabeled. And I'm not particularly sure, but I can get back to you with that answer.
All right, and my last one, I'm trying to see how they're lining up, okay. Medical, sick time buyback. That's adopted extremely high. You expect a lot of the buyback?
What page are you on? Is that under the
92.
sworn? 190?
It's airport,
The air crash rescue.
Oh,
There, you got it right there.
that's fire still?
it's still fire.
It's still fire.
Time buyback, and that's still. So when, if we have anticipated retirements, that's a contractual, agreement that they get paid out sick time when they retire. So those numbers are based on anticipated retirements
Ooh, okay.
for unused sick time.
All righty, I'm done.
I just want to say, whenever I see your guys on my street, I don't like it. I don't like it.
I know
And
you
there
had two
was-
fires right by your
There were a
house.
couple. There was one in the middle of the night that, like, my wife was like, something bad is going on, and I went out, and it was like middle of the night, house, lots of kids, lots of people, lots of pets, really bad flames coming out. Definitely not fun, but in the end, everybody was okay, and so I applaud you for the work because it's not easy, and we really need it. So, thank you for all that. Don't take it personal that I don't love seeing you. I like seeing you two guys drive around and kind of be familiar with things. That's always warms my heart to see you driving around. But overall, a tough job. I applaud you. And I like that you have the 5-year residency thing. I think it makes your force feel more accessible. And I very much appreciate that. And I predict that if the police doesn't get a 5-year residency thing, they will never win the basketball game between police and fire. Never. And last, you may not have a response for this, but ready, but I can take it offline. But how do you view the appropriateness of your head count? Like, what do you use as a point of comparison? Do you look at other cities per 1,000 people? Do you look at what are the mechanisms that you verify the appropriateness of your total head count?
Okay, so since I've been a firefighter, it's been almost 2 decades, and even before I got hired, our fire department's been cut a lot. 88 positions total budgeted, 10 on-duty positions, and just our command staff and our firefighters know, you know what you need to respond to these alarms. We go on over 20,000 alarms a year. If there's a major fire in the city, the beauty of our fire department is that strips our resources on duty down to half. So we have another, the other half of our fire department can go to another fire if that first fire isn't significant. So we know what we need to maintain just from our experience and our knowledge of what we do as firefighters. So I think that's the biggest gauge. Trying to make all that work inside the budget is a challenge. Like I said, the cost of doing our business goes up and up and up, and our department has sustained a lot of cuts over the last few years, and just knowing the types of alarms we go on and the manpower that's needed to actually respond to these alarms with this rapid development that we're seeing, and I think we all want. We got to constantly assess if we have enough firefighters to deal with the new construction, the way they're building the buildings. They're bigger. They're using different lightweight materials that makes it harder for us. So we have to assess a lot of different things, but we're constantly talking about, do we have enough resources, and when do we need to move forward and ask for more? So it's a constant conversation we have all the time. Yes. As far as our city, we have the ISO rating, which that also dictates a lot of what we need. In the ISO rating for our citizens, it shows that our department is well equipped to handle a lot of different fire situations in the city, and it's based on our manpower, the condition of our apparatus, the water supply, our policies and procedures. And what that does for businesses also is it shows that insurance companies can give a lower rate just because our fire department reduces the risk. Like the houses on Glenwood that you said, 214 Glenwood, I went to both of those fires. The fires were pretty good fires. Down on 119 Glenwood, they were severe fires, and people are living in those houses now. So the work that we do, we put the fire out, we try to limit damage, we tarp people's valuable equipment and household furnishings and anything personal, but our response times and our aggressiveness, we have those people living in those houses now. So I think a lot of the things that don't get measured in a budget is the things that don't occur. That house isn't going to be a vacant house. There are people that are going to be able to live in that house for a long time. So I think that's the beauty of our department, and having the right amount of resources always lets us to answer calls, and we're constantly managing it with our supervisors on duty, with our chiefs on duty, making sure that we have enough people on duty to answer a call. There's nothing like having a call for help and not being able to respond to it, and that's something that we pride ourselves on.
Thank you.
And I think Rebel is really happy you got him out that drain.
Yes.
Councilor Allen?
Yeah, Chief, so I just want to say, you and Chief Davis, thank you very much for the permitting help that you've given me over the last few months with people. Could you kind of speak to capacity about bottleneck on getting people the permits to develop in a timely manner? How do you feel we're doing? What type of capacity do you think you have? And do you have plans to expand capacity to expedite that process in the future?
Yes, so we've been working with our codes and our neighborhood development, and I think I've had interactions with most of the counselors about just different types of situations that come up. We and Chief Davis and Chief Evans, we've been meeting regularly and constantly because we want to make sure that things are getting built safely and as fast as everybody else wants them, but we got to make sure that there's life safety standards in place. We just did an assessment. I think we're up 25% the amount of permits that we took in from last year. We're proposing to hire another fire protection engineer. Right now we have one, and the codes, they review some of the plans, and by the time they review the plans and it comes to our one fire protection engineer, and to give him the ability to call back and tell people what they need, is just a lot of work for one person with that type of expertise. So we feel like hiring this extra fire protection engineer is going to actually alleviate some of this backlog and move forward in a positive direction.
Do you feel like that'll be enough capacity with the one additional individual?
We're constantly assessing it. There's a lot of functions that the codes department was doing. They were doing all the sprinkler reviews, and we took that over. So we're going to assess when we get this new fire protection engineer and make sure that it is enough. And if it isn't, I think it depends on the amount of building we're doing. You know, for this 20% increase that we have, we believe that this should be sufficient enough at this time.
Why was the decision made to move it from codes to fire with the sprinkler thing? Is that because you guys are more equipped to handle that, or?
Well, it's a life safety, and that's what we were trying to do. Sometimes the code division, they were doing life safety inspections, and it's things that our fire protection engineer ends up reviewing. So those people were actually on contract through the codes, and so now we have a full-time firefighter doing that all the time now with our fire protection engineer. So,
okay, and just one last question: do we know? And maybe this is something someone on our staff, Jimmy, or someone else can help me follow up with. But do we know, like Rochester, Albany, and others, how long stuff goes from permit to approval, and how Syracuse compares? I don't know if you guys have that information, or if we could acquire that information, because I have nothing to compare it to.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
I have a developers yelling at me that it didn't happen yesterday. So
Yes.
it's like, I don't know if that's a reasonable request or what the expected timeline is, and
Yes.
I guess and what the expectation is when they apply between when we're able to get to them. Like, you know what I'm saying?
So we have a set of standards that we've adopted under Mayor Walsh, and it's to have some of these plans turned around in 6 to 8 weeks, depending on residential or commercial, and that's our goal. But a lot of the times, they're like, and you and I have talked many times where somebody might submit some plans, and the time they submit those on February 1st, but then they're incomplete. Then we have to send them back, and then we're kind of going back and forth. But sometimes that time freezes while they have to get that information. So sometimes we are backlogged and we just can't get to every permit in a timely manner, but sometimes it's just a communication back and forth with the developer to tell them that they need to finish to actually drop off complete plans. Some of the plans that we get are incomplete, and we're coming up with, this is the rash of new construction. We're trying to turn our fire prevention bureau, which we do a good job with education, prevention, but really this needs to operate like a business, and that's what we're trying to do, because some of these developers, there's codes that we have to follow, and some of the developers, they have to follow the same codes, but sometimes the information we get isn't to code, and so that's where we have to go back and tell them to, we need to have this per code. And so we're working on it. We're working very, very hard on getting this so it's streamlined a lot better.
So we feel like our target is 6 to 8 weeks. That's our goal?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct, right?
Does that make sense, Chief Davis? Anything you want to say? If you
Yes,
want
and he could come up and speak
yeah,
on
would
it.
you like to talk on the mic, Chief Davis? And again, I appreciate both of you, responding to all our outreach. I know most of the counselors have contacted us.
I'm not yes, sir. The OKR numbers that we're referring to, I'm not definite on the specifics for the timeframes, but the 6 to 8 weeks what we're looking for. There are different OKR numbers for new construction, for renovations, for sprinkler systems.
Can you
So
clarify what OKR is for those who might not know?
Can you, it's
Yeah,
the,
there are standards for the known results. We have things to measure our work, and we use it for a lot of different things. And our permitting is one of the standards that we're using the OKRs to measure what we want, and we can come back after work is performed to see if it's
I
measured
didn't
up.
know. I just didn't know what that meant. Okay.
And I believe some of the numbers that we're operating off on now for new construction, something new from the ground, I believe it's a 10-week time frame for that. For the renovations or commercial renovations of an existing building, I believe that falls within the 6 to 8 weeks. We have also a number for fire alarms, for installation of fire alarms. I believe those are 6 weeks. Sprinkler systems, we're down to 4 weeks in our office. For site permits, I believe we're shooting for a one week turnaround on, or 7-day turnaround on site permits. And also for hoods and Ansel systems, we're shooting for a 1 week turnaround on those also.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. And if someone, I don't know, Jimmy or Chief, if you guys could let me know what comparable cities are doing.
Sure.
I mean, that sounds reasonable to me, but again, I don't have much to compare it to, but it
Yes.
makes sense. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I just wanted to state, I get, I can understand thoroughly what Councilor Rudd was saying. You hate to see emergency services of any type coming because it implies that, some kind of crisis or injury is potentially happening. But kind of at the same time, for those who are in a condition, they're excited about seeing you coming. I know for the one time I've ever called the fire truck in my life, I was certainly glad to see him come kind of quick. So, and there's a certain amount of security that people feel, I think, when, especially the people who are potentially in crisis. I thought one thing that you mentioned that spoke to me was the many things that won't appear in a budget, in the many ways that the department has impact. I remember specifically, the video of the gentleman whose life was saved.
On Clinton Street.
Right, and, and his very emotional express appreciation to the fireman who saved his life. And oftentimes when, it's the same for the police, certainly when the call comes out, usually it means an event has happened, but more so for fire, the unfortunate circumstances when a call goes, the crisis has already started or has already ran its course.
Yes.
And so, that's just me expressing what I think is an appreciation that many people have. It goes without saying that most people don't know what it feels like to run into a hot burning building, or even more so to run into a building where the floors are unstable or climb a roof that's unstable. And so I just want to express my appreciation for that.
Thank you.
It's very hard to beat up on firemen during a budget.
Yes.
hearing.
And like Councilor Rudd said, a lot of the times with our permitting process, that's a different process, but our actual firefighters on the streets responding to alarms, a lot of the citizens, they see the final product when we get called to the scene, but they don't see all the training, all the mental and the physical preparedness that we're doing just to make sure we're able to answer the call when we get there. And if I may, we just got a memo from some of our workers earlier this week, and it goes a touch on what Councilor Bay and Councilor Rudd was saying. So our Mini 9 that's up on the northeast side and our squad company were dispatched to an address in the city for a 5-year-old male drowning in a pool. Upon arrival, they found a patient laying supine on the concrete walkway, surrounded by the pool with a family member standing over him crying. The victim was pulseless, not breathing, cold to the touch, and gray in color. We immediately started compressions, ventilations per our protocol. While clothing was being removed, the AED was applied, and the analyzing advised us not to shock this patient. After assessing for a pulse and none was found, SFD continued working on the patient. As soon as the ambulance arrived, we scooped up the victim and we carried them to the rig. After aggressive, continual care inside the ambulance, the victim regained consciousness, coughed up a bunch of water and regained respirations, and the toddler started to cry. We continued working and ventilating inside the back of AMR, and we get these memos from our firefighters all the time. It's hard to, like I said, you guys, and not just the counselors, but a lot of the citizens, you see the aftermath of what we do, but this happens all the time where we get in between a life or death situation in our training, our courageousness efforts on the fire ground. It's something that you can't put in the budget, and it's priceless. So, like I said, I think our fire department has sustained a lot of, resources that have been removed from our department, and we try our best. We got some very good people that are working to make sure that our money's spent wisely and to be able to still provide these types of services. So, I just wanted to share that. We got this earlier last week, and it's a great thing.
They arrived on the scene, and basically he was dead on the concrete floor with the parents doing nothing, standing over the top, thinking their infant was dead. And 4 hours later, he's sitting in a hotel or a hospital bed eating Cheez-Its, and that's.
But you guys, you do a phenomenal job.
It makes us very proud to read those, and they didn't send them up to say, look what we did. It's kind of a way of keeping record, and that's what we have working for us, which is
Because I was
pretty awesome.
impressed with you guys when them people went in the harbor. I watched that. I watched you come with them trucks. I watched them jump out, and I watched you had the people with the scuba diving stuff on too.
Yes.
I watched it all.
Yep.
So on the additional fire protection engineer, is
Yes.
that in the budget?
It is in the budget, and we're heavily recruiting right now, trying to get somebody to come to our city to take the position. So
Okay. Is there an exam or something? they're gonna
there's
have to
no
take?
exam. They just have to have
Certified?
to be certified with a college degree, and we're looking to hire as soon as possible.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say OKR is objective key result.
Yep.
Sorry. That's all.
Okay.
That's what Google says.
Thank you.
Thank
Chief,
you.
and,
That's what Google says.
that ends this Public Safety Committee meeting. We'll be starting another one in 15 minutes for police.